My fiance and I are high school sweethearts, and we've been together for about 12 years. We were engaged for around 3 when he passed away due to an accident in the beginning of 2020. A few weeks ago, his brother came to visit me, and he's planning to propose to his girlfriend. He asked me if he could have the family's engagement ring. The ring my fiance gave me is a family ring which had been in the family for generations. I have been wearing this ring for almost 3 years, and it's a symbol of our relationship. I don't feel ready to give it up. When I told him this, he got upset and said it's a family ring and it belongs to him now that his brother is dead. I told him to get out. I called his mom to let her know why I wanted to keep the ring. She told me she wouldn't have minded if I had been married to him, but I wasn't, so I'm not part of the family and therefore I should return the ring. She said I'll move on one day and it's unfair to hold on to a ring that I will never wear again, especially a ring that belongs to her family for generations. I would have at least considered giving back the ring in a few years. I just can't bear the thought of parting with this ring now. So I told her I'm sorry that she felt that way, but her son gave me this ring and I'm not giving it back. Since then, his mom and his brother have been spamming my phone with messages and calls about how I'm trying to steal their family ring. So am I wrong for wanting to keep the ring?
In over a dozen cases that have been ruled as suspicious drownings, a smiley face has been found near the body. The smiley face killer has been somewhat of a theory for a while, from 1997 all the way up to 2017. 45 bodies of college-age males have been found in 11 states, all in bodies of water. And many of these cases are strikingly similar. While police have just ruled this off as an accidental drowning, New York City detectives Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte, both extremely credible sources with about 40 years of combined experience, have been working hard to solve these unsolved cases. They believe for many reasons that police have ignored obvious signs that we have a serial killer or a group of serial killers on our hands, and that they could be potentially responsible for up to 335 cases. All of the victims have been male, college-age, athletic, popular, and high on academic achievements, so they suspect that these murders may be out of jealousy. Almost all of the bodies found show signs of dying on land, and come back positive for a roofie drug. So why were these ruled as an accident? Let's look at the cases. Part 2 to the smiley face killer. So first, let's talk about the case of Patrick McNeil. On February 16th of 1997, Patrick was last seen with his friends at a bar called the Dapper Dog. This is located in Manhattan's Upper East Side. After throwing up in the bathroom, he told his friends he was leaving and would be taking the subway back. And after that, no one saw Patrick again, and his body was recovered floating next to the Brooklyn Pier in the East River, 50 days later and 12 miles from where he was last seen. After looking at CCTV footage, he can be seen stumbling down the street and last seen turning left onto 90th Street. However, it doesn't seem like he's alone. A van actually follows pretty closely behind him, and when he stops to throw up, they stop too. After a witness got a partial view of the plate, police still refused to look for it because they thought it would be too expensive, and just dismissed it as an accidental drowning, even though his autopsy death was classified as undetermined. His blood alcohol level did not seem consistent with the state that he was in. That's when Detective Gannon promised Patrick's parents that he would find their son's killer or killers. Part 3 to the smiley face killer. So why didn't Detective Gannon think that Patrick had drowned? Well, police ruled it this way because of an overconsumption of alcohol. However, his blood level of alcohol was not extremely high, which would not have been consistent with him throwing up. He was recovered on his back, which is unusual for a drowning. Blood lividity is the process in which the person's blood will stop moving after the person is deceased. For example, if you die on your side, your blood will pool to the side. And even though he was found on his back, the blood lividity was absent from his back, which is where it would be if he had died in that position. He had thermal injuries on both his hands and torso as if he had been burned, and strangulation markings on his neck. The most telling thing, though, is that his feet and hands did not present any skin slippage, which would have been consistent with having been submerged for 50 days. Nor was he bloated, which is found in a lot of drowning cases. In fact, the signs on his body would have been consistent with him being in the water for only 24 hours. Gannon's theory? He was stalked, abducted, held for an extended period of time, murdered, and then disposed of in the water. Part 4 to the smiley face killer. So now let's talk about the case of William Hurley. In October of 2009, he called his fiancée to come pick him up from a sporting event, letting her know that he was feeling really tired and that his phone was about to die, but gave her his location just in case. She came, and he was nowhere to be found. His body was found 6 days later in the Charles River in Boston, Massachusetts. This man was a Navy veteran. Similarly to Patrick, surveillance footage showed him stumbling. But again, when examining his body, his blood alcohol level was very low. So they decided to test for a roofie, and he came back positive with GHB, which would have explained the stumbling for both of them with such a low alcohol level. Not only this, but his phone was smashed nearby him. He had blunt force trauma to the head and eye socket and behind his left leg. But again, police said he must have slipped, hit his head, and accidentally drowned. It's so suspicious to me that the police are just writing it off as an accident, even though this man was literally in the Navy and able to communicate his location. And the case that comes after this is somehow more mysterious. Part 5 to the smiley face killer. So the next case that we're going to talk about is Dakota James, who was literally a swim team captain. On January 5th of just 2017, he goes out to a bar with some coworkers, leaves to go home, and then is never seen again. 40 days later, his body is found in the Ohio River near Neville Island. On CCTV, he wasn't stumbling at all, just looking at his phone, and then walks towards an alleyway. 10 miles from this area is where his body's found. However, to have gotten there on its own, it would have had to travel through a dam, but his body didn't have a single scratch or bruise on it, which would have been consistent for going through something like that. Not only this, but again, there was roofie in his system, and Gannon even said it looked like there was strangulation marks on his neck. According to the autopsy, there was not enough water in his lungs to prove that he had drowned. And even though he had been missing for 40 days, his body only had 3 days of decomposition. To add to the spookiness, 11 smiley faces were found spray painted close to the bridge where his body was found. And again, shockingly, this was ruled as an accidental drowning.
My husband and I have been struggling a bit financially because we're saving up to purchase a new apartment. He is used to eating fast food when he went to work, and he would spend more than $300 a month, which is about $20 daily. I talked to him about it, and he agreed that I would make him sandwiches for him to take to work. Everything was going well, and I noticed he wouldn't respond when I asked whether he liked the sandwiches I made, but kept asking me to make more than 2 since he was always hungry. Yesterday, he came home with some friends and coworkers, and we sat at a dinner table when his friend brought up the sandwiches. He said they're delicious, but they're a bit pricey. I was confused, so I asked him to explain, and he said my husband sells the sandwiches I make to his coworkers and then goes and buys his own lunch from the restaurant. I began arguing with him after his friend left, and he said there was nothing wrong with it. I told him I will no longer be making him sandwiches if he's selling them to buy fast food. He defended himself, calling this an overreaction since he's not spending money on fast food and said I was just being unfair to start an argument over this. I just walked into the bathroom and stayed there, and he said I owe him an apology for God knows what and that he didn't think it was acceptable of me to lash out and say I won't make him sandwiches anymore. So am I overreacting here? Am I wrong for getting upset at him?
Another movie you just have to see. Don't Breathe is a movie about a group of 3 thieves that like to go into people's houses, steal their stuff, and sell it so they can make money. They become tired of stealing things for money, so they decide that they're going to steal money. So they find a perfect target. A veteran who lives alone, has no family, no relatives, and lives in basically an abandoned neighborhood. And he's blind. A girl accidentally killed his only child, so he won a major cash settlement from it. So the 3 break into his house and decide that this is the last time they were ever going to do something like this. And they think because he's blind, he's going to be an easy target. And he's not. This man can fight, but you're pretty much rooting against him because you find out that he's not a saint. I was on the edge of my seat this entire movie. Because he's blind, he has no idea what is in front of him unless he hears something. You would think it's easy for them to escape and get out of the house, but not when everything has a padlock on it and he starts boarding them in. This man also has a very dirty secret down in the basement. There is a kitchen tool that you will probably never look at the same after you see this movie. If you want to watch it, it's on Amazon Prime and Hulu depending on your subscription. Acting, plot, and cinematography, 10 out of 10.
I know that this cannot just be a me thing. I know it cannot be me. There's got to be other people. Do you ever have days where you wake up and you just can't do life? Like, in the simplest terms, you just can't do life. Thinking about doing life, it gives you anxiety. Answering a phone call for an appointment, anything, you just cannot do. It is crippling to your mental health to even think about doing that. And then you wake up on days and it's like, nope, I'm going to conquer all today. I'm going to call the 30 places I've needed to call. I'm going to leave voicemails. I'm going to make appointments. And then like, what is that? Why is that?